Going to your...
All right, KISS Army, welcome to the KissFAQ podcast. Thank you for giving us your time today and letting us into your head. I hope we don't do any damage. We're just a bunch of KISS fans and we talk KISS. So come along for the ride, you've got nothing to lose. All right, welcome to the KissFAQ podcast. I cut Mark off during his pre-show monologue there, so that was always entertaining for me. Thanks for joining us live today for this episode of Stargaze. Austin Newland, Kiss Rocks, Kiss Vids, Ronnie Parker. Ronnie Parker with multiple comments already, all positive. There we go. So today we're going to continue the Where the Hell Were You topics from Alive 2 Side 4 on the board. There were a couple we didn't get to last week. What other news in the KISS world this week? Oh, Ace world this week was Baby It's You. That's one of the synth heavy. That's a cover of it was popularized by, I think it was the Shirelles. And the Beatles was the version that I first fell in love with. And of course it was used as a single for the Live at the BBC box that came out in the 90s for that. Always one of my favorite Frelly's Comet covers, just because it's kind of quirky and off the wall, so very fun there. What else went live this week? Also did the further dive into, I'm feeding back on someone's microphone, Daniel.
Someone's echoing.
I don't think it's me. Let's kill me.
Let's see if that stops.
It was me. I got it.
Oh, you got. I always think it's Daniel. All right. So the other video that went live this week was a further dive into KISS-related copyright registrations. If you're still awake, and in that one, that's just going through the paperwork for registrations for Wicked Lester. Malimo had a single song in there. And Chelsea, and I threw in the early KISS stuff as well, just for people to see the actual handwritten documents. I think is cool. So if I think it's cool, it might put someone else to sleep, and that's a win-win.
No way. Yeah. I love it.
Big news this week is Keith LaRue dropping hints on Facebook that the Indie Expo is going to return on the weekend of April the 11th and 12th. I'm interested in attending if it shapes up to be worthwhile for travel. So we shall see if it reaches that stage. Again, if it's not communicated outside someone's personal Facebook, it's going to be very hard to judge. So we'll see. Mail call. Anyone get anything cool this week?
Yeah, but it's all non-KISS related. But I got lots of records.
We don't care then. If it's not KISS related, you can go listen to your King Crimson in the corner, Mark. And
it wasn't that.
I did. I got a book. I got this, and I'm going to interview Martin. I think in a week or so.
Say hi for me. I've known him for a long time.
Yeah, so looking forward to doing that. Yeah, so you guys are going to get together next week without me to talk about this, because I don't participate in that show. Just one heads up and caveat on that: the cover may change. If I'm not able to come to terms with Pop House before publication, I'm going to have to yank the cover. And anyway,
damn.
Why would they have a problem with the cover?
Incredible cover.
That's how business works, Mark.
Yeah, I know. I do it all the time, but I've never had an issue with that. But
well, the things have changed in KISS world, so
hopefully
that's sorry to hear that.
I love the cover. I love the cover.
Yeah.
All right, so that is it. So let's get into today's topics, and again, they're inspired by a Live 2 Side 4 posting on the FAQ message board. It's currently not readable to guests because we've just been under massive bot attacks, unfortunately. So we had 3,900 concurrent connections, and it just trashes the system. All that AI shit that you use to generate dumbass memes. The price of it is that these AI scrapers, and there's hundreds of them. It's not just Meta or OpenAI. They are just endless, and they are just raping the internet and pillaging like a band of cyber Mongolian horde.
Or Vikings.
Yeah.
And they don't care about the damage that they do to websites. So it's almost like a denial of service attack. So I've had to lock down the board, and that's just what's
No
happening.
rhyme or reason.
Well, that's why on all these sites that you go to now, you're getting challenge questions to prove, are you human?
Right.
Yeah.
It's because there's no other way to mitigate what these bots are doing. And you can't just blame China. A lot of them
Why
are
not?
Russia.
Hey, what?
Russia too. So there we are. All right. So getting into not talking about technology, because we come here to escape from technology while using technology. The first one of the topics was, where the hell's my page gone? Where the hell were you? Number 4 was the date is October the 31st, 1995, and MTV Unplugged is airing for the first time on MTV. So Lonnie, where the hell were you?
Didn't we do that one last time?
No, we didn't.
We didn't? Okay.
No.
God, I hope not. If we're repeating ourselves,
We didn't do
the
that.
next
No.
we're doomed.
We did on a past podcast at one time. We talked about that.
Wasn't
Yeah,
long.
we did.
Yeah,
But these are all current on the board
Okay,
this week,
no problem.
so it's
Yeah.
always fun to
Yeah.
revisit.
I think Lana was in the crib.
We've talked about this. No, I was a junior in high school, and I remember seeing the advertisement for it, like maybe like the weekend before Halloween on MTV, saying that, hey, this is gonna be on MTV, coming up, and it was a weeknight. It wasn't Halloween. Wasn't like a Friday or Saturday night for sure. It was definitely a weeknight. And I guess like the previous weekend, like Halloween, let's just say it was a Thursday or something like that. And I remember I was out with my girlfriend, and we were at a party, and we were watching MTV because that's just what you did. And there was advertisement for Kiss Unplugged on MTV Halloween night, and I was like, oh wow, that's awesome. And like all my friends it was probably with her friends. We weren't with my friends.
It was a Tuesday.
I knew it was during the week. And like her friends looked at me, and then they're like, what? And I go, yeah, Kiss Unplugged. Like, that's awesome. They go, Kiss. I'm like, you guys don't know what you guys don't even know what you're missing, and like because they weren't popular at the time. They weren't.
Nope.
And I remember watching it. So then Tuesday comes around. Thank you, Mark. And I'm in the basement at my mom and dad's house, and I'm watching it, and I'm talking to her on the phone at the same time while I'm watching it, because that was just life, And they open up with Coming Home, and I'm like, oh wow, and then and Plaster Caster and Sure Know Something, just the night just goes on. I'm talking to her, she's watching it, I'm watching it, and we're just talking to each other the whole time, and it's just enjoying the show and how great it was. And I had no idea this was coming. I had no idea that Ace and Peter were coming out. This is 1995. I mean, I'm not, there's not this, there's not even really the internet in my house in 1995. So I had no idea it was coming. And they when Paul says we have some members of the family here tonight, and we're not talking about mom and dad, talking about Peter Criss and Ace Frehley, and they came out, I freaked out, just totally freaked out. Didn't see it coming at all. Was like screaming, yelling at her on the phone, like how unbelievable this is. And she's just like, okay, I really like you, but man, you're really into this. And I'll never forget it. It was, it's as crazy as it sounds, and maybe as stupid as it sounds, if you're not a Kiss fan, it's a core memory for me, watching that unfold and having no idea that it was coming. So, I mean, I can tell that story very vividly because I remember it very distinctly.
Mark, on that Tuesday, what was Marcus Almighty doing? What were you doing on Tuesday, October the 31st, 1995?
I remember exactly what happened because, and I've mentioned this before as well on previous episodes. My friend Ted, who was that guy, remember I told you, who has like his whole house decorated, wife be scorned. He doesn't care. He has like unmasked over his fireplace, the poster, everything, framed, of course. But he knew about it. He knew he was one of those TV guide people who always bought those things and knew what was happening. So he found out that this was being broadcast. So our band rehearsal was canceled that night. No rehearsal. Everybody went over to his place. We all grabbed a 2-4 of beer, 24 pack. Went over there, got his wife was forced to make a bunch of finger foods for us. All that kind of shit that you eat during those things, chicken wings and all that stuff. All right, and we sat down and we had a great time watching it. I mean, like I said, like I love Kiss. I follow them a lot. As you guys know, same as you. But he took it to another level. Like he knew every little bit of minutia and every little thing back then. Much more than I did. So this was like not going to be missed. I would dare say that if we had a gig that night, he would probably insist on canceling it or postponing it because of something like this. He was that devoted to seeing Kiss stuff. So we watched it and we had a great time, and we were comparing, like, wow, I can't believe they played that. Can you believe they played? Like he was stunned that they played, a World Without Heroes. He's like, really? They're playing this? But he liked the way it turned out. But he was one of these guys that wasn't too hip on the Elders. So when they played that, he was like, his first reaction was, oh, they could have put something else in instead of this song. But then after he's like, hey, you know what? That wasn't so bad actually. So it was a fun take because it was one part of it was our fandom coming out, like our, the youthful vigor. And the other end of it was the musical analytical end of it, which was like, oh, Bruce did that really good, or oh, he missed a note here and this and that. And then when Ace and Peter came out, we didn't expect that either. And then that was like really shocking when that came out for us. So, and he was over the moon. I dare say that I might have seen a tear because he was one of those guys. It was Ace Frehley's like biggest disciple. He had the huge posters on his wall, and there's one in the kitchen, that one with the smoking guitar. He had a big framed Ace Frehley in there. So when Ace came back out, he was in awe, and you couldn't even talk to the guy for like 5 minutes. So it was a memorable evening, to say the least.
Wow. Kiss fans bitching about setlists. He was actually complaining about what they things
He was
never
ahead of his
change, do
time.
they?
It never changes.
Oh, I wonder which band board member he is. Is he still around?
Oh, he's around. If he's on the board, I don't know. I've never heard him come out of the woodwork. So
Find out if I banned him. All right, Daniel, how about you?
I had a problem because I was doing the military service here in Sweden. I was they wanted me to be a sniper, and it was a pretty harsh time because we didn't get a lot of leaves. You had to be out in the forest and practice shooting and stuff like that. I mean, I can take your hat off from you have such a fucked up system when it comes to measuring things, but like a kilometer, if you know what that is, 1,000 meters, I can take your head right off like that. So
I don't deal with a metric system.
Yeah, you guys do that old archaic stuff that we, understood
long
was
forgotten,
worthless. Like 300 years ago, we changed it. I think France was first, and then we mimicked them. Well, anyhow, I couldn't get to a TV. I was out in the forest sniping, so I had to tell a friend that please, can you record this on VHS so I can watch it my first leave when I get off from the military service, and he did. So. I remember it vividly. I got the VHS tape and I watched it, but I think I had I kind of knew what they were going to play. I don't know if it was through strike or something, or I wasn't that surprised, but I did like it. And I was a bit surprised when I heard Lana being so happy that Peter and Ace was back. To me, since I grew up with Eric Carr, Bruce Kulick, and Eric Singer, I wasn't that happy the way they sounded with Ace and Peter on that album or that show, MTV Unplugged. I thought there was a distinctive drop in quality of how they sounded. I could, with my eyes, see that Peter Criss didn't do any fills. Eric Singer did all the fills and stuff like that. So I wasn't too impressed by Peter and Ace, and Peter and Ace was never, a part of my childhood. So I thought it was great, but I didn't get that hallelujah feeling,
warm and fuzzy feeling.
not warm and fuzzy feeling. More like, oh, they look really old. Was my first.
Daniel, I
So
gotta
they
ask you
put
something
makeup
before we
back
move
on.
on. What rifle did you guys use in the military for sniper?
It's called PSG 90. It's Swedish for
Okay.
sniper rifle.
Yeah.
It was such an excellent weapon. It was almost scary when we practiced.
Mm.
You shot at you practiced on soldiers,
scope.
and if you hit them, you had a great scope, but you needed to learn how
Wait,
to.
you practice on the soldiers? I don't think that'd be very good for morale.
No, I mean like cardboard soldiers.
Yeah.
I mean, if you hit them a light,
It's not good for your numbers.
if you hit them on that 1,000 meters, a light would lit.
Oh, nice.
light up, so you knew that
Yeah.
you hit, and you would think about the wind and all that kind of stuff. So
Mhm.
not anything I had a lot of use for after that, but it was kind of cool to be a sniper.
Well, we're going to work on the team building exercises this weekend. We're going to bring in a sniper. All right, Ken, October the 31st, or whatever night it was, actually, 1995. Where the hell were you?
Yeah, October 31st. I probably came home from work, and then I think I knew about. It could have been an early internet thing if stuff was there, because I had a computer. But I think I had heard that there was a chance they may have other members of KISS appearing before. I think I somehow, I don't know where or what it was exactly, but I think I, thought, oh, this might actually, something might happen, special here. So yeah, I sat down in front of the TV and put, also like Daniel was talking about, the VHS, the blank tape, and making sure I capture this show so I can watch it back, of course. Plus, at the time, it being Halloween, and it was probably started about 7 or 8 o'clock at night, that show, that I had to hand out candy to the kids, come trick-or-treating. So as I was watching and it was recording, I'm getting up and down. I was like, don't ring, please, nobody, no more doorbell rings, please, no. But no, there was a lot, and I had to get up and down. So I was watching it as it was going along, and of course I watched it back after the full thing, missed the next day, and so on. But yeah, I was excited that they were gonna. I mean, I saw I was at the convention thing, so I kind of knew a little bit of what they were doing acoustically, and they were playing other songs. So I was able to go to one of the conventions in San Francisco when they came through here, which was great. But so I was prepared for that kind of thing, but I wasn't prepared for, I thought, oh wow, the stage is awesome, the Rock and Roll Over, carpet they have on, I guess, which is still around in the KISS warehouse. But I thought, wow, that's cool. And then they thought, oh yeah, they put the mannequins up, high behind them, that I saw at the convention, and that sort of stuff. All that, it's like, oh yeah, okay, it's cool. And they played, which I enjoyed. I thought it was well produced, and it was just a great job. But then when Ace and Peter came out, I was excited, but I think I was not excited, but I was kind of something new. I knew it was going to happen, but I was, still pretty excited. I was like, okay, there, oh, great. This is, we have the whole band here and more. The original lineup is actually here. So I didn't have any idea or feeling that it was going to continue into, I thought this is going to be a one-off, and they would probably, whatever, go their separate ways, and it would continue. Yeah. But so because Gene and Paul was always saying, there's no way we're going to ever get back, there's no way we're going to put the makeup back on. That's what they were saying. So yeah, never believe anything they say, obviously. But it was great. I enjoyed it thoroughly. It was a cool moment in I guess KISStory. So yeah, I watched the whole thing. and then I continuous probably playback every day for a week or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so October 95. Where the hell was I? I was
Singapore?
no.
No.
I would have been in Scotland.
Okay.
And with no MTV.
Oh, no.
CompuServe or America Online were my access, my gateway to rec music artist KISS and KAOL, KISS
Mm.
Army Online, the message
Okay.
forum on
Remember that.
AOL, and of course KISS Asylum and Otaku and
Mhm.
KISS Freaks,
Oh,
and
great stuff.
all of the
That's old school.
progenitors of
Yeah.
what we do today were all part of my life. So I didn't get to see it. I had to wait until March '96 when it came out on VHS and to hear it. So it just went by any other night. If I was doing anything, we were 5 hours ahead in Glasgow. So I wouldn't have stayed up. I would have just checked the news groups, for messages about how cool something else that I was missing out on was. And when it came out and I got to watch it, the video package was very well put together. It was almost worth the wait because of the extra little, stuff
Yeah.
in the video that, gave it context for those who maybe hadn't seen that. So that those of us who only had it vicariously after the fact, it was still a wonderful experience. And seeing the excitement in the message boards and the news groups immediately after, there was a buzz alight, and it was impossible to not feel that excitement from those who were there, those who saw it. So even being left out, you weren't fully left out because of that, if you were online, at least at that point, which a lot of people clearly still weren't. So the video to this day remains very, very enjoyable, very watchable. It stood the test of time, which I think bespeaks the importance of that moment. The album itself, we regularly rank it highly whenever we talk about any of those songs in a live format, or whenever the band did something particularly special. It's always something worthy of celebration. I don't think we ever have anything negative or, overtly critical to say about that moment. All the pieces came together, even some of the things that were challenging in the background out of the eye. It all came down to what happened in that moment. And to this day, 31 years later, how amazing is it that it still holds up and is held up in very high esteem by, I'll boldly say, a majority of the KISS Army for this one. Regardless of whether you're one of the fans who were pissed off by the reunion, whether you're one of the fans who were pissed off by other people donning the makeup, it's held up. People have not really reevaluated those original feelings about it. So there we are.
Yep.
All right. And then I think this is the final one of the Where the Hell Are Yous for now. We're going to go back even further in time to April the 19th, 1985. And the KISS Animalize Live Uncensored video hit the record store shelves. Where the hell were you? Start with Daniel and see if he was in a forest.
Well, I wasn't in the forest. I was just a little kid, so I missed out on that one. But when I got it through stuff like this. This got through the snail mail, KISS Special. And then you had... Here you got the Visual Evolution, 73 to 79, Winterland, 74, Kiss in Time in Japan, 77, and Detroit, 1990. So these kind of stuff made you, look for KISS stuff. And one of these letters said, KISS Animalize. It was way too expensive back in the day. It was really expensive when I got it, but at least I got it, and I was amazed when I watched it the first time. And still to this day, I think it's one of the best recordings of KISS live. I think that video was probably a bit ahead of its time, because the way it's filmed, the power, the tempo. I know a lot of guys think they play the songs too fast, but being like a bit younger, I appreciate tempo. I appreciate energy, and I appreciate Animalize live and censored. I think it's probably the best official release they ever did. And I watched it over and over again, and I've showed my friends, of course, and I think that's an awesome performance, and it shows Kiss being back with a vengeance after the fiasco that was The Elder, and then people didn't care about them. But the Animalize tour was probably their most successive tour during the Unmasked years, and I understand why. It looks great and it sounds great. There are a few overdubs. I think it's especially funny when you hear Paul Stanley singing on the chorus of Heavens on Fire, and he's standing like 10 meters away from the microphone.
Yeah.
Hello, mute button. Lonnie. Lonnie would have been pretty young, I would have thought.
I was pretty young, and I did not get this in 1985. I don't think I got this until, I want to say it was late 96, early 97, somewhere in that window. I got it from and Austin Newland, who's watching, he knows where I got it from. I got it from a record store called Missing Link. That was real close to my house at the time. I could ride my bike there even. And I bought it from Frank. At Missing Link. And it was expensive. Frank was a great dude, Ken. You don't even know. He'd hold stuff. He knew I was such a big Kiss fan. Like he'd get in LPs and that, and he would hold them basically for me before he put them on sale and put them in his store. It's like, do you want this? Because you're in here all the time. He was a great dude. And he sold me Animalize, and I brought it home and I watched it on the VHS, and it's still amazing when you watch it today, just how fast they're playing and how different those songs sound than what maybe we're used to them sounding. So I agree with Daniel though it's a little bit ahead of its time that putting out a video like that. It was kind of visionary, actually. As much as we kind of give Kiss crap of being behind in the times or chasing trends, I think it was ahead of its time. It was it was very well done, and it's a very good representation of obviously what the band was at the time.
Yeah, man. I'm going to go next because, like you, I wasn't a little young. I just wasn't a Kiss fan. So at that time, no shits were given by me about Kiss Animalize live. It'd be towards the tail end of the year that I got into Kiss. Now, I did see the concert on MTV because we were living in upstate New York, and I hadn't moved to Singapore at that point. So I saw the concert. I was unimpressed with the concert at that time. Didn't do anything for me. I didn't know the songs were too fast. I didn't know there was any difference. Pretty much didn't know or care who the hell Kiss was at that point that I saw it. So it was only in later years. I wouldn't have gotten it until the 90s. So after 92, when I moved back to the UK, I would have eventually got it in that period, and certainly after coming back to the States again in 98. But I did get a copy of it in Indonesia on the bootleg cassettes. We're just sourced from videos at that point. I still have the Ultimate Sin Aussie one up there on my shelf. I no longer have the Kiss one, but I did actually listen to that a lot once I became a Kiss fan. And I still didn't know it was too fast at that time. It was only, as the years progressed that I started to really turn against the speed of that era. In particular, pre-Crazy Night stuff. Mark.
Well, I was pretty young at this stage too. I was 12 around this time. But it's interesting though, I do have a vivid memory of this video just for one reason and one segment of it when I think back to it, because as I told you guys before, my older sister, when we were living in the apartment buildings, she had those friends that were like up a floor and down a floor, the guys with the jean jackets with the backpack, and they were big Kiss fans. And one of the guys there, he had Animalize on videotape at the time. And the only thing I remember, and because I had a deja vu moment later in my life, was that the ending of the show, but when they're doing Black Diamond and you see Eric Carr do this drum roll and he counts in and they do the ending part of the song, and when they come down the lighting truss, when they're coming down from the lights during that part. And I remember that part vividly. It was stuck in my mind, even at a young age, because later when I bought Bruce Kulick's Hot Licks instructional guitar video, at the very beginning of that video, that exact same footage is played and showing him coming down with the guys down. And then when I saw that like years later, I was like, wait a minute, where do I remember this from? And then it hit me that it was that moment back when I was 12 seeing that video. So my recount of the actual concert was much later than that, but I had seen it. But the only thing that seemed to have stuck in my mind was that part, probably because I found it very exciting. You know, it was something cool to see this, you know, guys from row, you know, coming down the light truss there and stuff like that. So it was really interesting. So that's where I was during that time, and don't remember too much of it then, but later on I would watch it, and you know, lots of interesting moments in there. There are parts of the show where Paul starts sounding like an auctioneer. It's going so fast, you know, but you know, you get used to it after all. I find that the more you watch it, the more you get used to that tempo and used to that way of hearing it, almost to the point of where after it's, you know, after you get so used to it and you watch another concert, it almost seems slow in comparison then, because you're so used to hearing it at that tempo. And this must be very important that Julian's had this on for the whole time I've been talking, this whole Man of 1,000 Faces bit. Okay, so over to you.
But Mark, you being a musician, do you think any of the songs they performed became much worse because of the up-tempo version?
Well, what I was always taught when I was doing like engineering and stuff like that, and even in songwriting things I've done when I was really young, they always say that if you want to have a song come off heavier, going fast doesn't help in the oomph of a song. Because if you're going so fast, you can't get the sonics to really sound heavy. If you pull the tempo back, then you can really do like the heavy doom. Then it sounds a lot heavier when you chug down at a slower tempo. But as far as energy goes, the playing it that fast really helps with energy and stuff like that. But accuracy sometimes suffers at it as well, because if you have like licks in there, like there are complicated lines, you know, playing them at double the tempo can be a little tricky if you're not a top-notch guitar player.
But Mark, did you feel that any of the songs became a lot worse in that tempo?
I
don't feel that.
Maybe a couple, maybe one or two, but nothing that really stands out where I think to myself, oh, that was terrible, you know?
That's a myth.
Well, if a song's good slow, it must be twice as good played fast.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so what is this Man of 1,000 Faces video?
Yeah, so this was put up on Facebook recently, or at least in the last 6 months is when I saw it. So this is a press release by Fax, allegedly, for immediate release to celebrate their sold-out Animalize World Tour. KISS will record their upcoming 16th album, Alive 3, on December the 8th at Detroit's Cobo Hall Arena. Pardon me. Nice. KISS Alive and KISS Alive 2 sold multi-million copies worldwide and became the standard live albums. The concert will also be an MTV in-concert special broadcast. I can't read the rest of that because it's fading out. So that was just a what could have been for the video that we're talking about, which still wouldn't have meant nothing to me at that stage of my life. Ken.
Yeah, I remember hearing about it, or which came first, I don't know, but I want to say the VHS came first, but I could be wrong. Maybe it was the MTV thing. But I remember going to a local video tape rental place, one of the early, that's around the time where they started opening those rental stores. And
Blockbuster.
it was even, I think this was before even Blockbuster. It was a different store before Blockbuster came in. I think Blockbuster took them over actually at one point. So this is one of the early ones. You go down the rentals, and then I heard that it was going to be released and out. But yeah, back then VHS tapes were expensive. If you wanted to buy a movie or whatever on VHS, where they were releasing it, it wasn't cheap. It was, I'm gonna say it was at least 50 something bucks or more to get that. So it was an expensive purchase at the time to get that videotape, but I got it, and I got it and brought it home and played it, crazy over and over. So yeah, it was a cool thing. I was still a big KISS fan because I never stopped starting from 77 through all, Creatures and all Elder. And after that, I was seeing them in concert every time they came through, in Northern California. Didn't miss it. I saw the Animalize tour.
Cool.
So yeah, I knew what to expect. I was happy that I had something out like that because they didn't release anything like that before.
Hey, Ken.
There was no live concerts. It was kind of just before the bootlegs. Yeah,
Ken, it says here that in '85, a brand new top tier movie on VHS would cost typically between $70 and $100 in 1985, and B movies would be between $40 or $50 in '85.
Yeah, it was expensive. Like I say, it was expensive. It was a big, investment purchase at that time, and yeah, I was working, but at that time, but I wasn't making a ton of money or anything like that. So at least I saved money.
But hey, Ken, you're the only one who was at Animalize concerts.
Yeah.
Can you give us give a few memories that you remember? Who was the opening act, for example?
Oh, what was it on my list? Was that Queensryche?
Probably.
I think.
Yeah.
And I think
the warning.
Was that the one at the Oakland Auditorium, which arena in Oakland, the old, or the Kaiser, whatever they got? I remember a big line of us out front. I think I mentioned this, that there was a big line of us KISS fans. I guess the dedicated KISS fans were waiting to get inside. It was general admission, no reserved seating or anything like that.
That's the way to go.
And they had the metal barriers, the rack that they put out. And we're there, and I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, someone started pushing, and everyone just. I thought, oh man, we're gonna get crushed here or something, or trampled. It's like, shoot, it's gonna be one of these, the Who experience, like they had that tragedy in Cleveland, where people got trampled, but it was at a concert, but inside a concert. But anyway, I remember that. I remember. I thought the stage was kind of, not bad, pretty cool, and yeah, they had all the effects and the normal. They still had the KISS sign, I think. They were using from the 70s, right?
Yes.
So yeah, it was cool, enjoyable. A great, energetic show. I remember. So yeah, I don't remember a whole lot else from it though. I still have the program, the tour program, right behind me. So it's not, you can't see it. It's on a shelf. Sorry, it's on a shelf. I bought the headband, for the little cheapo headband for Animalize.
You should wear that on the show.
And I think
we want to see you in the headband. That's a good idea.
One time, maybe when we do the next Animalize revisit or whatever.
Headbands need to come back. It's awesome.
Did I get everyone on that topic?
Yeah,
I think so.
All right. So this is just an off the cuff one. Who's listened to KISS this week? Mark, what have you listened to from KISS in the past week since the last episode? What's been your KISS What's been in your KISS playlist?
Actually, in my KISS playlist, I've listened to Alive 2 because I finally busted
Awesome.
out my the reissue, the splatter vinyl one, because I wanted to check it out and see finally how it sounded, and it sounded good. And I did actually listen to Revenge. I listened to that one because the last time we talked, I talked about when Ken sent me that vinyl copy. That I very much thank you, Ken, for sending me that. Yeah. So I busted that out and took a listen. And actually, I also listened to Asylum on vinyl. I was going through, because I've been going through my Discogs and just checking my list and see what I have and don't have. So I've been listening to a bunch of different records.
Lonnie?
I've been listening to that Crazy Nights bootleg from Japan. Nice. That soundboard from Japan. That's pretty good. I've listened to that a couple times. I listened to that earlier in the week, and I listened to Japan 95 also this week as well. Those have been the two KISS things I've listened to this week. Both very, very different from one another, but both very good.
Yeah, that Osaka, I think it's Osaka, isn't it? For the Japan bootleg.
The Crazy Nights one?
Yeah. Was very good. Sounded great, actually. Good. So yeah, very, very impressed. Daniel, what about you?
Well, you know, I live in the north of Sweden. We have a lot of ice and snow still. And the problem is we got a lot of tourists from the former Soviet Union. The former Soviet Union. And they are like everywhere around my house. And they have no manners, and they have a different way of life, I think. So every time I go and walk the dog, I have to watch those Soviets around my house. So I'm so goddamn tired of them. So I need to play something rough and tough in my headphones. And I always go with Asylum because I don't have to skip a single song on Asylum. So I go listen to Asylum and I try to look tough and mean and walk past those Soviets fishing, a few hundred meters from
those damn Soviets. Damn
Soviets.
Commies.
Our arch enemy.
Bastards. Commies.
Put on your sniper uniform.
Yeah. Don't give me any ideas now.
Don't kill anybody. Please don't kill anybody.
Ken.
The only thing I could think of that I listened to KISS-wise was Unmasked because I sold a couple of Unmasked vinyl albums. one was an Unmasked from El Salvador.
Oh, really? You had one of those?
Yeah, I had one of those. Wow. I might have another El Salvador.
Let me know.
I'll let you know. I'll run it by you before I put it up. But and then another one was what was the other Unmasked? But anyway, I had to play to properly grade the record, whether it sounded any good or not. So yeah, that's what I listened to this week.
Nice. Well, I was just looking at the message board, and the Gene Simmons set from last night has just been posted. So, L'Auberge Casino Resort in Lake Charles, Louisiana. I think he was playing at a shrimp fest or something. What was this? The event center. I probably butchered that because that's Cajun French, and that's like nothing like French. No. All right. So here's the set list. Are you guys ready?
Yeah,
there we go. And you can give a thumbs up as we go along to each one of these as I read them out. All right. Deuce.
Yeah.
All right. I'm happy. I'm leaving that show right then. All right. Yeah. Shout it out loud.
Yeah.
Okay.
War Machine.
Yeah.
Yay.
I'll give it.
Ooh,
yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
That's a thumbs up for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Domino. I'll give that
Domino. You don't hear that every day.
Something different. Come on.
Yep. Parasite.
Nice.
Yes. Thumbs up.
Keep it going, Gene.
Pay homage to Ace Frehley. Oh, a double banger of homage to Ace Frehley. Strange Ways.
Ooh.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
That's good.
That's very, very cool. That's like
I'm liking the set list.
Double thumbs.
Yeah. Charisma.
Yeah, I like.
Yeah, that's good.
Can't go wrong with that. I'm wondering if this is someone else
Is
doing
it real?
Gene takes a break.
Right?
Holy shit.
I know.
Rocket Ride.
What? No
If that's
way.
true,
Wow. That's got to
I'll
be a
give it a
tribute
thumbs
to
up.
Ace.
I'll give it
No way.
I'll give it a 3
Yeah.
thumbs up if
Yeah.
I'll
that's real.
definitely give that one a thumbs up. That's fantastic. I want to see the context of how it's performed. Cold Gin. All right, so that's a given.
Okay, yeah.
Guitar and drum solo. P break.
Yeah.
I Love It Loud. Calling Dr.
Okay.
Love. Let
Yeah.
Me Go Rock and Roll.
Ooh,
And
good.
Rock and Roll All Night. That's an exceptionally well
Yes.
balanced, shorter
Better.
set.
That's great.
Yeah.
Much better
Yeah.
than what he's been doing. With
Got
all
rid
the
of that
Van Halen thing and
the Van
He
Ace
should
Halen.
play
Spade.
Are You Ready, though. He has to play something from his own.
Are You Ready?
Hey,
That's okay.
He's done that. He's done that.
Give
Yeah,
me
but
some
Mark,
classics,
what
hidden
are you gonna
classics.
take? You're gonna take you have a choice, Mark. Are You Ready or I?
Ooh.
Well, I would
Aye.
kill like Cold Gin. We've heard that so many thousands of times.
Yeah, he could put it something else in that.
Right,
place.
but
Yeah.
he's got to play Cold Gin. Again, he's playing
gonna
the hits
play
of
Cold.
Kiss. You
I
know,
want
there's
to hear
certain
Cold Gin.
I
there's
just
certain songs.
Rocket Ride is just like.
That's
Is it
just
really?
insane.
Did they do the
Yeah.
whole thing, or is it just a portion that
Really
could
just
happen too?
Mm.
Let
Yeah,
me
you
just
just
Could
see.
it be a medley of Ace stuff?
Yeah.
Well, they're gonna obviously do like a tribute segment to Ace during the show.
Dude, we're
right?
gonna
So
have
that would
to
make
look
sense.
at YouTube for this
Paul
one.
wouldn't do it. I don't think Paul would do it.
No, I don't think so.
Let's see.
Well, come to California.
Band's
Gene.
playing it.
Wow.
Is it online? Is it on YouTube or?
It's probably online.
Yeah, there's a clip on YouTube
I'm
right
sure
now.
there'll
have
be
to go
some
watch
stuff
that after
eventually.
this.
Yeah, show up.
Let me
Okay.
just throw
Such
that
a
in.
great Ace song. Such
No,
a
that's great. There, what I can hear of it sounds really good. So there's that link, everyone, in the
Darn
message for Gene Simmons Band doing Rocket Ride. We've all, or at least I have, I've always said that that's one Kiss song that should have been done live in the
Hell
Oh yeah,
70s.
that's for
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
At the time, it
That's a
was
good song.
just, and then by the time they get to Dynasty, they have such a backlog of material that there was no way they were going to fit in anything from the Alive 2 album as well. So
Well, you know
hey,
that Gene during the tour previously, he did that heartfelt speech about Ace. So he wants to pay homage to Ace, and I like it. I think it's even though he said a couple of few things that
Stupid.
seems
Yeah.
kind of crazy and stupid. Somewhere along the line, you do understand that he really loves Ace, and this is a great way to
Yeah.
pay homage to him.
yeah, come on. I don't see this
Strange
as making
ways.
amends for what happened. Gene is Gene. Gene's going to
Yep.
say stupid stuff.
Yep,
You know,
right.
like a lot of us say stupid stuff, but we don't have the same platform to get taken to task for the dumb
Sure.
things that we say.
Well,
You know, things do sometimes come out wrong, but I think Gene is a sentimental guy. I think
Yep.
Gene is also, he was there with Ace for 50, business in business with Ace. So they know the things that we don't know. They've got the scars and the pain of that interaction. And anyone who's been in a band, Mark, knows that there's frictions and challenges
Or a
between
family.
those. And imagine how those become magnified when you become as famous as Kiss, and there's as much money involved. So
For
money,
sure.
the root of all evil, is what it's called for many a reason. But I'll take Gene doing Ace songs as a very positive thing,
Yep.
just to celebrate, because it celebrates Kiss, it celebrates Ace, and
Yeah,
it's also part of Gene's catalog. So,
that's good.
There.
Anyway,
all right, let's wrap up these other topics. So we just look at my notes here. So one of the other conversations this week has come back again to the multi-tracks with hotter than hell. And I think the poster was saying, let's do a petition to Universal. I'm going to write a strongly worded letter. Always works. That is the one thing that you're guaranteed to have success in. Don't bother with the petitions. Universal knows what they've got. Universal knows what they might want to do with it. There's a lot more involved in doing something other than the multi-tracks just existing. Again, everything costs money to pull those out of the library, to make sure they're transferred, to line them up, to pay an engineer, to remix. It all takes a lot more, and they may not be serviceable, but you know, just as the top one of the topics this week on the board, Lonnie, would you give a shit about Hotter Than Hell being remixed, and would you sign that petition?
I mean, I can sign a petition for it. I mean, sure, why not? I mean, what, you know, it would be interesting. Let's just say that it would be interesting, but we listened to Destroyer Resurrected at the same time, and you know, I think for me, quickly, I went back to Destroyer the way I want it to sound, or the way I've grown accustomed to it sounding. So I think it would be interesting to listen to a remix version of Hotter Than Hell, but I don't think that no matter how good it is, I don't think it would just become, oh my gosh, I'm only listening to this from now on. I'm never going to listen to the 1974 Hotter Than Hell ever again. I think it'd be an interesting experiment, but I don't think it would ever become, for me, my definitive version of the album. I mean, there's something pure about the way it was recorded in 1974.
Yeah, I mean, how often do I go back and listen to Destroyer Resurrected? Never. I pulled the Sweet Pain version with Ace's solo and put it on the regular version. That's all I listened to. If I recall, it was even ignored on the 45th anniversary box set. So that kind of says it all. The Aerosmith debut is coming out as a box set treatment, and I have no interest in doing anything other than doing that to hear the debut.
Isn't that the Aerosmith Legendary Edition a remix or something?
Yeah, it's a remix.
Yeah,
remix.
But you don't want to listen to it?
I won't pay to listen to it. I will do what Daniel does and not pay to consume music by listening to it on Spotify.
I pay to Spotify.
Okay, I refuse to pay Spotify because they refuse to pay artists. I just use Spotify to listen for free to see if I want to buy it.
Right.
You know, so I will check it out, but there's something appealing about these albums that don't quite sound right in some cases. It's not always the case. So with Hotter Than Hell, it's always going to sound or expect to sound a certain way in my head. I will never ever go back to it. Motley Crue, Too Fast for Love. Now most people heard that in the Elektra remix. I can't listen to that. I can only listen to the leather mix.
Yeah, me too.
Because again, it wasn't faulty. It was fucked with. Two different paradigms in play. Same with Dawkins Breaking the Chains. I can't listen to the Elektra version of that because it's brutalized and destroyed what was a very, very good, to my ears, mix. Same with Twisted Sister, Under the Blade. Fantastic in its, I think it was Under the Blade. Maybe screwing up that one. One of the
Stay Hungry, they re-recorded.
Yeah, it's Still Hungry, just a shit redo.
No, I think that's one of the better re-recordings.
But it's just a redo. It's not trying to fix something that wasn't right in the first place, because that album was in its time perfect, sounded perfectly fine.
Yeah.
The Secret Records version of Under the Blade, I think it was. I can't remember whether it was Pete Way who did it, and they redid it completely for Atlantic. So again, I'm getting sidetracked. What the fuck am I talking about? Daniel, you talk.
We're talking about the
Hotter Than Hell remix.
Hotter Than Hell remix. I don't think it'll do anything because, like you guys said, I'm accustomed to the original versions of Hotter Than Hell, the Hotter Than Hell songs, and I don't know if I want them to sound that much different because I've become accustomed to that muddy sound. When I want to hear different versions of Hotter Than Hell, I go to, live versions from the Revenge era. Then I get the heavy metal versions of Hotter Than Hell. They didn't play a lot of songs during their record era. I think they didn't play a single song from Hotter Than Hell when Eric Carr was in the band, unfortunately. You might have to fact check me on that, but I think that's correct. I don't think they played anything from Harder Than Hell with Eric Carr. Very unfortunate. But when Eric Singer entered the band, they played a lot from Harder Than Hell. And I do like, Parasite from the Revenge era, Harder Than Hell from the Revenge era.
Watching
You, exactly, Lonnie. Watching You sounds great with Eric Singer and Bruce Kulick. So when I want to hear different versions of the Harder Than Hell album, I simply go to live versions from the Kulick Singer era, and I love those.
Yeah, I think you nail it, Mark. Did I get you, or who am I missing?
No, you didn't. You didn't get me.
Me too.
I was one of the people when we first started talking about this, like years back, that said that I didn't like the sound of it. It was too muddy. It was terrible compared to the rest of the catalog. Blah 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 blah. But I think now over the years, having worked on my own records and heard lots of thousands of albums in between, one thing that I think is true is that time is a big factor when it comes to this stuff. We've been sitting with these mixes now for so long that they've become how they are, and we know them for how they are now this way. If to change them now would almost sound wrong, even if they completely fixed everything that we wanted fixed in it, it would probably sound not what it's like something that we wouldn't want to hear. It's like, no, I'm kind of used to it the original way. But the thing is, again, with the time, for example, when Rush put out Vapor Trails, that was a terrible sounding mix. They couldn't stand it when it came out, but they did a remix of it not too long after that. They did a remix of it and re-put it out, and I liked that one much better. And I think if they would have did the same thing, like left it for like, let's say 25 years, 30 years and did it then, maybe I might have the same view, like, oh, I'm so used to this version, I just rather this way. So I think time plays a factor in this. If you're gonna do it quickly before people have that embedded in their minds as the only way they can hear it. So I don't know. I don't think there's any point in doing a remix of it now. I mean, we're so used to it this way, and a lot of people love the songs the way they are. Like Lonnie mentioned, Strange Ways and Watching You, and these songs, we can't imagine them any other mix on that album than the way they are.
Rock and roll is about imperfections. I wouldn't even want something like, I wouldn't want them to fuck with Hysteria for that
exactly.
matter, or Slippery When Wet. It's like, what are you going to do to make those better? I mean, all these artists, I know that there are foibles, that there's, I wish I could, there's always that, kind of regret that there's something that you wish you could change. But the flaws of Hotter Than Hell and the quirks of it is what gives it its character. And it is so ingrained. It would be a novelty, and that's all it would be for me. Right. I would certainly support it and saying, why the hell not? Because I know that there would be people who enjoy it, and there would be people who discover the band through it, as we know for a fact with Destroyer Resurrected being some people's entry point into this crazy band. Ken, before I forget, your opinion, sir.
Yeah, I could see it as part of a box set, maybe. I don't know how much even a remix would help it, because based on how it was recorded and how instruments were mic'd and filtered and whatever when they recorded it, it may be a difficult thing to make it sound much different than it is. It could make it worse, possibly. But there are cases where remixes, I mean, Mark mentioned like the Rush, but where, for instance, I have a Chicago 2, for instance, with Steven Wilson remixed that. I also have by Steven Wilson, Jethro Tull, a couple of those remixes. Man, those sound awesome and sound great. He's in some cases, people are, like him, able to remix something and not make it a drastic, change where where it really like, oh, that doesn't sound right or whatever. He's able to make it sound even better in many instances. At least for me, they sound just like, wow, this sounds so much better than the original, vinyl of Chicago 2. I mean, it was like, wow, this sounds great, So yeah, it can work. I don't know. Again, Hotter Than Hell, I don't think it would work. It would be more of an interesting thing to me to hear a different mix. Kind of just interesting to see how it might sound more than anything else.
And one
Just real
important-
fast. I just like to say that Stay Hungry and Still Hungry. Still Hungry is heavier. The vocals are about the same, but I still go to the original.
Do you know
Even
what?
though it sounds weaker, even though the drums are weaker, I go to the original. So I think that would be what would happen to Hotter Than Hell if you sort of remixed it and made it sound great. You're still so accustomed to the original sound, so you go to the original one.
One thing you got to be very careful of too, and this happens a lot, is when a band gets an album remixed, and this has happened with Genesis, and I'm sure lots of other bands, where they get it remixed, and then that remix becomes the standard that gets reissued all the time, and they don't ever use the original versions again. They don't issue them on vinyl, only the newest remixes, because of labels like, well, we spent all this money remixing it. Why am I going to press the old ones now? We want to just press these ones now. Right?
Hey, that's really interesting, Mark, because how many times did Kiss use those re-recordings that they did of classic Kiss songs? I don't know.
Too many times.
Were they used in commercials and stuff like that?
They were.
They were. Okay.
Some of them,
Yeah.
They've certainly been used. You know, the problem with remixes of albums, I mean, AC/DC Powerage is another great example. Did a fun episode with BJ Cramp on Rock and or Roll way back. That was one that its original European early mix, way better and ballsier and punky than the version that was remixed for American consumption, which was more commercial and polished. And, you know, so all of these don't matter. It's all about people's entry point. People who heard Leather Crew before something else, or Secret Records Under the Blade before the Atlantic one. Again, where you go in, and also people's taste. Ken said something that I think is actually to build on. Take the original standard mix of Hotter Than Hell and give it to Steven Wilson to make immersive. Imagine being in that experience of surround sound and hearing that sludge fest. That is way more appealing to me than listening to a remix where I'm starting to not trust what some of these labels are potentially doing by throwing these analog multi-tracks into DAWs and throwing patches on. You can actually see it on Frangioni's videos of some of the things that are being done to affect those tracks. And I see both sides of the discussion on the validity of what they're doing. In some cases that they are trying to reproduce things that were done in the past with electronic means, but they are also changing things, particularly around reverb. Yes. Reverb on this, reverb on that, reverb. That's all we know. Reverb.
Reverberoni, that's his name.
Well, I wouldn't go into any name calling when it's all down to personal taste and aesthetics. But with the Aerosmith one, I feel like the remix is just laziness in a sense. It's number one, pandering to Steven's perpetual need to fix things and to control things, where that whole CD is superfluous, just irrelevant to me. And I would much rather have multiple takes. They've even skipped in remixes or the original mixes, because I don't know which one's going to be on the album, of Dream On. Seriously?
Wow. This is a great track.
Yeah, and doing the extended instrumental mix of Dream On. I mean, Adrian Barber did a Pipeline feature in 1974 where he went through the multi-tracks, and you could hear all the glorious harmonies and the building, the bass. No, and he talks like Mark does sometimes about how to make a song. First we record the drums, and then we record the bass, and then we layer on the rhythm guitar, and then we do the lead, and then we do the vocals on the back. And he's going through each one of those stages. Is that on a Legendary? Well, it's not very legendary to me when it's got a bootleg people have been listening to for 50 years. That was part of Bootleg Live.
Yeah.
All right, so that's my rant. And that's our show. And that's our show this week because there's really nothing further to say. So just remember, next week the guys are going to get together and talk about War Machine, the cover that
may or may not be.
Currently holding up is not yet approved for commercial use.
Great cover.
And I'm not playing any games, and I'll flip it to just freaking Tor ads to get the damn thing out if I have to, if I don't get what I need. So that's business too. All right, but for now, when's War Machine coming out?
Use my picture. I'll let you use my picture on the cover. Okay, never mind. It's not that good. It's just
War Machine is supposed to be available end of this week, early next week. So around time that these guys are doing the show. But again, I have to do some things properly now, which means talking to the ownership, and I'm trying to. And we'll see if we can get there. And if not, we'll do it the old-fashioned way. All right, that's it for this week. I want to thank you for joining us. But for now, from Lonnie, from Mark, Daniel, Ken, and myself, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for spending time listening to the KissFAQ podcast today. All sales are final. There are no refunds. If you'd like, look us up on Facebook or come over to the message board and discuss the topics we've broadcast today. Don't forget to hit subscribe wherever you've listened to this show, and a like would very much be appreciated. We hope you'll join us again, but until then, remember, life's a radio. Turn it up to 10.